Hey everybody, Derek here to bring you another video for The Walking Dead Season 5. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday. I did, and I hope everybody's looking forward to the new year coming up. Here comes 2015. So, today what I'm going to do is another predictions video, just basically trying to predict who I think the next villain will be on The Walking Dead in Season 5. One of the things that we've been seeing is, each season has their own respective villains, and sometimes the villain is the same, and sometimes the villain changes. And there's a lot of options that Walking Dead has to choose from right now, and I'm basically going to be giving my thoughts on who I think will be the next villain. Just in case you're not caught up with the show or the comic books, this video will contain spoilers, so if you're not caught up, don't watch or you might be spoiled. Okay, so at this point we've had, for season 5, we had the Hunters, or Terminus, for about 3 episodes, and then we had Grady Memorial for the last 5. And so I think that we're done with the Grady Memorial story at this point. Whether we'll see them again or not, I don't know. They may or they may not. But we basically have said goodbye to them, I think, for a villain in Season 5, and a villain in general. So now we're moving forward, and you have to wonder, who else do they have in mind? And we do have several options from the comic books. We have another group of bandits that they encounter after they reach the Alexandria safe zone, but I think that would be too repetitive at this point, of being like the claimers that we just saw. We've already dealt with bandits, so I think we're past that. We also have the Saviors, obviously, who are definitely a big part of the comics, but at this point I think that they're going to save them for at least another season or two. I can't imagine them trying to introduce them now. I think it would be too sudden, and as much as we want to see them, I just don't think that it's appropriate at this time for them to bring the Saviors in. We also have the Whisperers, who have just been introduced in the comics, and part of me wonders if, even if they don't introduce them now, whether they will introduce them before the Saviors. I've heard rumors about that there's a possibility that we might see the Whisperers before the Saviors, which would be very interesting, because I think that the Saviors is almost something that you'd want to kind of save as long as you can, like till the end, because it's going to be very big. And in some ways, I think that it would really be hard to trump the Saviors. I really think it is. I mean, the Saviors themselves in Negan were hard enough to, trump somebody like the Governor or the Hunters, but they really did a great job in that. But the thing is that the TV show is really going to be limited as to what they can do, because there's only so much that you can show on TV. And I think that if we showed the Saviors too soon, that we might not, be able to have a great villain after that. Hard to say, but there's a lot of options that they have, but I don't think that they're going to introduce the Whisperers either at this point. My idea is that the villain is not actually necessarily going to be a brand new character or somebody else coming in. I think it's going to be the characters themselves, like kind of like a philosophical or a wrestling with your inner villain versus humanity nature kind of battle. I think that's something that we're going to be seeing, particularly in this last half of season 5. And I don't think we're going to run into another group. I could be wrong, but I think that at this point, what we're really looking at is the way that the characters have changed. And I've watched all the episodes again, and you just realize how much in season 5 these characters really jumped into a brutal type of world and encompassed a brutal, force. The way that they killed the Hunters, and then of course you have Rick, who's pretty much being that center of the towing the line between being a hero and being a villain. You can see that because one of the differences that I've always seen with Rick and Shane is that Rick looks at everybody that is in his group as his family, and he would go to the extremes for them. We've seen that multiple times. Rick is not that guy who's going to sacrifice Glenn to save, Sasha. Let's put it that way. He wouldn't be somebody that would do that. Whereas Shane would have been like, hey, if I got to kill Dale to, keep Lori and Carl safe or to establish my leadership role, I'm going to do it. And that's always been the big difference I've seen, at least, between Rick and Shane at this point. But Rick also encompasses a lot of other things that Shane, promoted. And one of the things that we see is that Rick kind of is a form of Shane, if you want to say. And the way that he ran down Officer Lamson, you see that Rick is definitely very distrusting of the world. And I'm not going to say that he's not without merit. I mean, after running into the bandits, after running into the hunters in Terminus, I mean, these people who are cannibalizing people, it's really hard to trust people. And trust is definitely, I think, going to be something that you see later on in this season. And some of the storylines I think that we're going to be going towards has to do with the Alexandria safe zone, or something like it. And, do we trust this guy? Like, because in the comics, Aaron comes out and basically says, hey guys, we got this community, you guys seem like you're a cool, group, you seem like you're somewhat normal, granted, and you guys want to come back and maybe become part of this. Well, this is exactly for the TV show, like what Terminus was. Terminus, signs everywhere, sanctuary, come, and we're going to protect you. No, we're actually luring you here to eat you. Yeah, my bad. And I mean, it's almost going to be like the same thing for them. Where, at least what I think might happen is somebody might appear and be like, hey, listen, we have this community. Do you guys want to be a part of it? And they're going to be like, what? Especially Rick, who's going to be like, no, we can't trust anybody. And that's part of the reason why, he wanted to, I think, go in and kill the officers rather than do the hostage trade that Tyrese and Daryl wanted to do, is because, Rick at this point is not trusting of people. And he's more willing to shoot first and ask questions later. And it's the same thing you see with him running down Officer Lamson. Again, it toes the line. Because on the one hand, I understand where Rick is coming from, where you have a guy who just hurt one of your people and who tried to escape and could have, ruined your plan. But could he have just, ran the car in front of him and, had him run into it? Sure. And you see both sides of that. But I think that what we're really going to see is Rick himself, I think, towing the line between being a hero and being a villain and doing things that, are very questionable. Because I think that what we're really going to see is Rick stepping back up into his leadership position, and I think that he's pretty much going to be trying to tell people, that we're just going to be out we're going to be out on our own again, we're going to be on the run, we're not going to listen to people, and who knows, he might, be the one that ties up Aaron. I think that everybody at this point is going to be, somewhat submissive, I say, to what Rick wants. I think that part of that's going to come from, Beth's death. People are going to be reeling from that, and Rick is pretty much going to be the person that's going to step forward, I think. And another thing that you have to consider is that, I think that Rick is just going to finally be done with this compromising position, because that's pretty much what he did throughout the whole first half of season 5 was compromise. It was, oh, okay, I want to go back and attack Terminus. No, we're not doing that, Rick. Okay, now we're not leaving. You guys are not splitting from the group and going to Washington on your own. Sorry, Rick, we're going to do that. And, oh, we're not going to do this hostage negotiation trade. We're going to go slit some throats. Sorry, Rick, we're not doing that. And I think it's done at this point. I think Rick is done dealing with all of that. And I think that we're going to see him, basically saying, enough, guys, okay? Look, you people, I mean, and I don't know if he's necessarily going to explode at people, but I've always wondered, if Rick's going to be like, it's your people, it's your fault that, Beth's dead right now. It's your fault that this crap happened because you didn't listen to me. And I don't know if he will or not. It'll definitely be very interesting to see his response to his other group members. Because if I was Rick right now, I'd be ticked. Um, Now, whether it's best to, blame everybody else or not, I don't know. I don't think that Rick is that type of person, though. I think he is the person that would take it on himself, which is something that he has done, and would basically say it's my fault because I didn't fight hard enough for, what I wanted to do. So I think that it's really going to be Rick himself, and maybe Daryl and a couple of other the cast members who are really struggling with, are we heroes or are we really villains? And I think that as we go into the Alexandria Safe Zone or something like its storyline, I think that's when it's going to really pop out and really, start to show whether they're heroes or villains. Because if you remember in the comics, they were very distrusting of these people when they first came there, and Rick basically took the guns back from, the Alexandria Safe Zone people, as well as, you have the whole storyline with Pete Anderson. And, I think that in the TV show they're going to portray it in exactly the same way, where it's debatable. Did Rick do the right thing or did he not? And who knows? They may even change it. Because Andrew Lincoln has noted that Rick is going to get darker as the series goes on. Now, I don't know if they can necessarily do anything about that until they get to the Alexandria Safe Zone. Because I really don't see them being able to have like another situation where there are villains or some other people there. I think that has to wait. I think we're not going to see anything like that until we get to season 6. So I think it's more going to be about the internal conflict of the survivors and Rick himself really deciding, am I a hero or am I a villain? And like I said, they may change it, and maybe instead of the people being, okay with Rick killing Pete, because what happens in the comics is, basically Rick beats Pete up, and they basically like separate the families, the Anderson family, Rick, they just separate them. But Pete wants his family back, so he tries to attack Rick and Douglas Monroe with a knife, and he ends up accidentally stabbing Douglas's wife Regina, who Douglas is the leader of the Alexandria Safe Zone. And of course, Douglas is so enraged, and everybody else is like, "Whoa, Pete really is a maniac," da da da. And basically, Douglas says, "Rick, shoot him," and Rick does. So it kind of takes the villainy out of it when somebody says, "Go ahead and do it," and especially after what happened. But if that's not what happens, and instead what happens is Rick kills Pete when he attacks him, that's definitely going to change the circumstances for, the group. And I wouldn't be surprised if, as we get near the season finale, if they do have the Anderson storyline, which I think they should, because I think it's very important, where they have Pete and Jesse and Ron, and if, Pete is abusing Jesse and Ron, and Rick, confronts him, and, it's like a cat and mouse, like, what do I do? Or what should be done, and maybe Douglas, if Douglas as a character tells him, no, we can't do that because he's a doctor, because that's what happened was Pete was a doctor, which is why Douglas was willing to kind of overlook his abuse of his family. If Rick will take action, and as a result Pete dies, rather than having, something more justified happen, and then Rick's placed in like a jail, and it's kind of like a cliffhanger of what are they going to do with him, and what's going to happen with this community. I think that would kind of be the path that could be looked at. But I think that what we're really going to look at is Rick himself. Is he a villain or is he a hero? Wrestling with that along the season, and then seeing maybe in season 6 where we come out at and what can be done to maybe shift Rick going back to who he was in season 4. So I think there's a lot of things that they can work with, but I don't think we're going to see any actual villain other than like Pete Anderson and Rick himself struggling with his internal, hero versus villain tendencies. So that's what I have. That's my prediction. If you guys have any other predictions, don't be afraid to leave them. Feel free to subscribe. I have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions that you'd like, any video topics for the upcoming Season 5 Part 2, just let me know. I can do a video on anything you guys want me to do. I hope you all have a wonderful New Year's, and thank you very much.